It all kicks off with the Earth suddenly falling to pieces out of nowhere. A colossal rift tears open the sky, revealing a terrifying demonic eye. Just like that, the entire world is swallowed by a horde of monsters erupting from the depths of the ground. Gigantic beasts spread destruction while humanity fights to avoid extinction. For a whole millennium, warriors fought tirelessly to wipe out these creatures. After rivers of blood were spilled, humanity finally achieved its long-awaited victory. Ages later, civilization rose again, forming bright, sprawling neon cities. A sense of calm reigns, even on the facade of a luxurious nightclub called Memphis. Inside, a guy in a suit is chilling on a sofa, asking his date for a kiss. Rin coolly agrees to the client's request. Outside, a security guard announces he's heading in. Suddenly, a hideous abomination with a giant eye in its mouth appears out of thin air. The monster attacks violently, tearing apart everything in its path. Meanwhile, back in the club, the girl who was about to give the kiss reveals herself to be a monster and takes the suit's head clean off with a single bite. Blood splatters across the walls as the headless body drops lifelessly to the floor. Morning breaks in a quiet, tree-lined residential neighborhood. An old lady peeks at the commotion outside first thing in the morning. On the neighboring balcony, a man in a suit enjoys the fresh air while carrying some groceries. He notices his neighbor nearby. Fuma Akai politely introduces himself, explaining he just moved in, but the old lady just ignores him and slams her door shut. Feeling awkward, he walks into his own apartment, announcing he's home. Right at the door, his daughter Mitsuru pouts, complaining that she wanted a peaceful life in the countryside. Her dad scratches his head, explaining that he grew up in the country and always admired the hustle and bustle of the city. He advises the young girl not to say things like that at school, so she doesn't push away potential friends. Completely convinced, Mitsuru declares that someone as cute as her would never end up alone. Fuma glances at the time and panics, realizing they're late for her first day of school. Father and daughter sprint down the sidewalks, apologizing for bumping into people. They dash across the street, nearly causing an accident. Almost out of breath, the pair begs the guard not to close the front gate. The employee holds the gate to Rikahara School open as they arrive, apologizing once again. In the principal's office, Fuma bows over and over, begging for forgiveness for being late while the principal tries to calm him down. The man leaves, telling his daughter to pay attention in class. Mitsuru raises her hand, eagerly agreeing. But as soon as her dad turns his back, she mutters that with all his apologizing, he's going to end up with an embarrassing nickname. Over in class 1-2, the teacher announces the arrival of the new student. Mitsuru walks in with unshakable energy, giving her official introduction. She tries to win over the class by revealing she loves to cook, and is a super fan of the actor Tsuyoshi Kemochi. Nobody reacts, and a disturbing silence fills the room. To break the ice, the teacher starts clapping, encouraging the class to join in. In the back of the room, a few girls watch the new kid with a very hostile attitude. Our MC deflates instantly, realizing her reception was a total flop. The teacher just points to an empty desk and tells her to sit down. As she walks dejectedly to her seat, a shy voice calls out to her. Shinkai leans over her desk, confessing she's also a huge fan of the same actor. Mitsuru's eyes light up with excitement, having already made her first friend. Mitsuru's school life as a transfer student for the 5th time begins as a bird flies past the window. The day passes peacefully with a view of the empty sports court. Inside the classroom, Shinkai tries to convince her new friend that her story is real. She warns her not to go near the school's storage shed, because skirts lift up on their own over there. According to legend, dozens of creepy hands burst from the ground, attacking the female students in the dark. Bored, Mitsuru rests her face in her hand, not believing a single word about ghosts. The conversation is cut short when the group of snooty girls approaches their desk. The green-haired leader arrogantly tells the new girl to go buy them some juice. Mitsuru sighs, lamenting that you find freeloaders everywhere. Losing her patience, our MC asks the queen bee who she thinks she's talking to. One of the followers slams her hand on the desk, outraged by the disrespect. Panicking, Shinkai steps in front, apologizing for her friend's attitude. The girl with glasses whispers that Ito's family is very influential, and it's dangerous to cross her. Giving in to protect her friend, Mitsuru stands up and asks what flavor they want. The trio of bullies shows their pure mean streak, loving the forced obedience. Time passes, and the school falls silent. Walking back with the bags, Mitsuru thinks that she'd never bow down to someone like this, if it weren't for the promise she made to her dad. A sudden thud immediately grabs her attention. Looking down the dark hallway, she spots Ito's group cornering someone. Shinkai is on the floor, getting beaten up while begging for forgiveness. A deep sense of outrage hits our protagonist. She storms forward, furiously demanding to know what they're doing to her friend. Ita greets her with a smirk, saying the new girl arrived at the perfect time. The bully taps Mitsuru's shoulder, ordering her to pour the juice on Shinkai's head to earn her forgiveness. Her followers echo the order, reminding her of the danger of going against their leader. Arrogantly, the green-haired girl pokes her index finger right into Mitsuru's forehead. Fed up, the MC sinks her teeth into Ito's finger, making it crystal clear she would never follow an order like that. The queen bee lets out an agonizing scream of pain. The minions panic and try to intervene, while Mitsuru holds her bite firm, not backing down. The whole mess ends up taking the group straight to the principal's office door. In the principal's office, the principal gives them a serious scolding, warning that causing trouble right after enrolling will result in expulsion next time. Fuma forces his daughter's head down into a bow, apologizing and promising to give her a stern talking to. Later, walking through the city streets, he asks what the whole fight was about. Calmly eating a snack, Mitsuru explains that her friend was being bullied. Hearing this, her dad reminds her that he'd warned her not to cause any trouble. Our MC apologizes with a blush, promising she'll do her best not to get expelled this time. But Fuma fires back, reminding her she said the exact same thing at her last school. Night falls on their apartment building, marking the end of a long day. The dark apartment hallway silently displays the family's nameplate. The next morning at school, Mitsuru opens her locker and is greeted by a mountain of trash falling on her. Holding all the garbage, she remains completely expressionless. Moments later, Ito and her followers show up, telling the transfer student to come with them. Led by the bullies, Mitsuru enters a secluded storage shed behind the school. Inside, the queen bee throws her notebooks on the floor and locks the door behind them. With a sadistic look, the green-haired girl asks how she had the nerve to bite her finger, threatening that any resistance will result in expulsion. Calmly sitting down on a pile of trash, Mitsuru asks, without a hint of fear, what they're planning to do. Absolutely furious, Ito orders her minions to beat up the new girl. One of the girls throws a punch, but our MC dodges it with ease. With the failed attack, the aggressor ends up slamming right into the lockers. Frustrated by the dodge, the group's leader warns that if she resists anymore, her friend will be the next victim. As soon as she hears the threat, Mitsuru lowers her guard and takes a heavy slap right across the face. She ends up being held by the arms by the followers while the queen bee celebrates that the new girl has finally quieted down. Unable to defend herself, our protagonist takes another violent blow. One of the aggressors mocks her, asking if she's an idiot for taking a beating to protect someone she just met. Ito pulls out her phone, turns on the camera, and orders them to rip all her clothes off to make her regret being born. Laughing sadistically, the minions start pulling at Mitsuru's jacket while she remains on her knees. Filming the whole thing, the leader cruelly comments that the new girl lives alone with her father. She figures Mitsuru's mother must have run off with another man, which makes our protagonist lift her head furiously, telling her not to talk badly about her parents. With a wicked smile, Ito calls her pathetic for being abandoned by an irresponsible mother. Seizing the opening, the green-haired girl lands a brutal kick to the protagonist's face, asking if she should hit the reset button on her life. The impact throws Mitsuru violently backward, sending blood flying through the air. The blood spilled on the floor begins to evaporate, forming a dark, sinister mist. Outside the school, the sky darkens rapidly as a dense energy takes over the area. Forming in the red clouds, a colossal silhouette of a creature covered in tentacles appears above the building. Inside the shed, Ito freezes in terror, staring at the protagonist's body lying in a pool of blood. Dozens of monstrous hands begin to sprout from the shadows around them. The queen bee backs away in horror, asking what those things are, and trying to claim she didn't do anything that bad. Completely frozen with fear, the other girls can't move a muscle. Suddenly, a terrifying aura expands violently, tearing through the space inside the room. A gigantic hand smashes the concrete floor, cracking everything around it. Two bright red eyes light up in the deep darkness. A colossal demonic beast rises before the students, revealing its horrifying form. Staring at the girls, the abomination hears them, barely able to stammer out the word monster. Behind the creature, Mitsuru remains on her knees, enveloped in a mysterious energy that seems to connect the two. Faced with imminent demise, the group leader's face contorts in absolute panic. Without mercy, the demon charges forward, roaring fiercely as the bullies scream in desperation. The silence outside the storage shed is abruptly broken. Crashing through the roof, the building structure explodes into pieces as the gigantic creature decides to leave. From a hallway window, a teacher watches the destruction in shock and runs to warn the other staff. The colossal monster lands in the courtyard, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris. Mitsuru leaps nimbly through the rubble, falling through the air. She lands firmly on the ground without a single visible scratch. In another part of the school, Shinkai lets out a scream of terror as dozens of ghostly hands smash through the windows around her. Along with the roar of the larger demon, the school courtyard is quickly overrun by a horde of shadowy spirits emerging from the earth. The girl with glasses runs crying through the hallways, chased by the crawling specters. With a focused posture, our protagonist starts running at full speed toward the danger. Wearing a bizarre mask, an evil spirit sniffs the air, commenting that the smell is delicious. The new girl spots the giant creature menacing the other students in the courtyard. Using superhuman speed, she charges forward, cutting a path through the middle of the monster horde. As she runs, she notices that the haunting seems to be getting more and more dangerous. Mitsuru skids to a sharp stop on the hallway floor when she finds what she was looking for. Desperately trying to escape, Shinkai ends up running right into her savior. The girl with glasses holds her friend's hands, crying with relief and asking if she's okay, since she heard Ito had called for her. Pulling her friend by the arm, the protagonist warns her that this is definitely not the time to talk about that. As they run down the hall, Mitsuru notices her companion looking back fearfully and asks what she's seeing. A bizarre, muscular ghost appears right behind them, drooling with hunger. The protagonist yells for her friend to run faster as the giant demon smashes the floor right behind them, sending bricks flying everywhere. The colossal creature bursts through the school's exterior wall. Out in the courtyard, the two run for their lives, begging the monsters not to get any closer. The blue giant stomps hard on the ground, making the earth tremble with its weight, with the beast roaring right at their backs. Mitsuru shouts in frustration, wanting to know what the heck is happening here. Running back inside the building to escape, they pass a security guard, who tells them to stop running in the hallway. Before he can do anything else, the staff member is brutally attacked by the shadowy specters that were crawling on the floor, being carried at high speed in her friend's arms. Shinkai begs to be put down as they approach the exit. The new girl ignores her plea and shatters the glass doors with a leap, warning the monsters not to come near. However, the giant demon lands, blocking the main exit, prompting Mitsuru to coldly inform it that it's in her way. The colossal monster lands heavily, shattering all the concrete pavement around it. With a menacing energy, the beast crouches down, gathering strength for its next attack. The pressure of the movement completely shatters the ground in an explosion of rubble. The abomination roars fiercely at Mitsuru while Shinkai completely panics in her arms. Sliding backward and kicking up dust, our protagonist ignores the creature and focuses on keeping her friend safe. At that moment, the giant lunges with its sharp claws, demanding they hand over more food. Planting her feet firmly on the destroyed ground, Mitsuru prepares to act. She quickly realizes that the main target of this bizarre chase is just her. Without a second thought, the new girl throws Shinkai into the air, telling her to run as fast as she can. The girl with glasses lets out a scream of terror as she flies through the air, away from the beast. The next second, a gigantic, shadowy hand sweeps through the space where they were standing. The impact hits Mitsuru head on, causing her to spit up blood from the injury. Sadistically, the demon collects the blood from the air, savoring the meal and looking delighted. But suddenly, a dark spear appears out of nowhere, piercing the monster's face. The giant freezes completely as its head is run through by a colossal stake of dark magic. The one who appears carrying the girl is Fuma, holding a sword with a completely intimidating stance. Outside, the entire school begins to glow with a dense, reddish energy. Still pinned by the stake, the demon analyzes the weapon that just hit it. The beast recognizes that familiar power and immediately understands what's happening. The monster hesitates, realizing the true identity of the man standing in the middle of the dark flames. Fuma stands amidst the black fire, exuding an overwhelming aura to protect his daughter. All this mysterious energy shoots skyward, tearing through the environment. The magic explodes in a gigantic flash that swallows the entire school. Slowly, the light dissipates, revealing the building intact under the late afternoon sky. A police car is already parked and waiting at the entrance. Back in his apartment, Mitsuru slowly opens her eyes, rubbing her face. She sits up in bed, asking when her dad got home. The man enters the room wearing an apron, letting out a heavy sigh of relief that she's awake. Extremely shaken, he confesses he nearly had a heart attack when they told him she fainted at school. The protagonist crosses her arms, finding all the drama pathetic, and tells him to get a grip. Her father hugs her tightly, offering a sincere apology for the situation. He maintains a serious expression, showing pure concern for her well-being. Mitsuru looks down, feeling a little guilty for causing trouble. Pushing away the covers, she assures him she's fine, but confesses to seeing some very strange things there. Cutting her off, Fuma warns that if she keeps using her powers in front of others, it will be impossible for her to keep attending school. Annoyed, the new girl retorts that the group of bullies started the fight and even insulted her family. She clutches her chest, hurtfully questioning why she doesn't have a mother. Trying to calm things down, the man gently holds her shoulders. He hangs his head, taking all the blame and apologizing again. Meanwhile, outside, a monstrous hand grabs the edge of the balcony. A thin, multi-eyed abomination climbs the building, silently slinking near their window. The creature opens its grotesque mouth, letting out a muffled snarl. The tense moment in the room is broken by knocks coming from the apartment's front door. Calm footsteps echo on the hallway floor. The protagonist walks to the entrance, trying to guess who could be there at this hour. Two men in suits are waiting in the hallway, one of them looking very strange with deep, dark circles under his eyes. As soon as he opens the door, Fuma senses something is wrong and immediately pulls his daughter behind him. The larger man introduces himself as a police officer wanting to ask a few questions. Suspicious, the homeowner sizes up the pair without letting his guard down for a second. Minutes later, they all settle into the living room for a formal conversation. The bald detective explains they've come to investigate the explosion at the school and asks Mitsuru to tell them what she saw. Clinging to her father's arm, she plays dumb, claiming she just heard a loud bang and ran away in fear. The other blonde investigator leans over the table, pressing her on whether she noticed any other details at the scene. He gets closer and closer, invading the girl's personal space with a disturbing stare. On the sofa, his partner just watches, clutching his briefcase tightly. The protagonist sticks to her lie, firmly denying any other information. Persistently, the blonde man tells her to think carefully if she didn't witness anything scary, no matter how unreal it might seem. Fuma loses his patience and grabs the man's arm, demanding that he stop. The father warns in a threatening tone that the girl doesn't know anything and needs to rest. With a cynical smile, the visitor explains they're just trying to gather clues to catch the culprit. Without backing down, Fuma retorts, asking what makes them so sure the disaster was caused by a human. The bald detective senses the tense atmosphere and interrupts his partner, saying they're leaving now. The pair walks to the door, mechanically thanking them for their cooperation. At that moment, the father notices a dark aura leaking from the mysterious briefcase. He quickly concludes that those two reek of magical power and are definitely not real police officers. Before they leave, Fuma casually asks what happened to the blonde man's bandaged hand. He touches the man's shoulder, offering to help carry his things. The fake detective flinches, hiding the injury, and insists it's just a minor burn. The two visitors finally leave, walking down the building's exterior hallway. Watching through a crack in the door, Fuma wonders if those guys sensed his daughter's power. Far away now, the big guy silently asks what the conclusion of the visit was. The blonde man confirms with satisfaction that it's the exact magical power their boss was looking for. Back in the living room, Mitsuru senses her father's tension and asks what's going on. Fuma turns to her with a serious warning, "Don't draw any more attention at school from now on." The girl agrees, unaware that the bizarre, multi-eyed beast is still lurking right outside her bedroom window. In the girl's room, the bizarre, multi-eyed creature climbs onto her bed. The abomination opens its grotesque mouth, drooling all over the sheets. Opening the door, Mitsuru catches the monster making a mess right on her mattress. The beast lets out a muffled snarl as the sky outside turns orange. The next day, the morning begins peacefully at the front of Rikuhara School. Mitsuru says goodbye to her father at the entrance, while he asks her one more time to try not to draw too much attention at school. Hurried footsteps echo across the courtyard moments later. Shinkai runs over, all excited, to say good morning to her friend. Just then, a charming man in a suit walks by them, catching the eyes of some nearby students. The girl with glasses tugs on Mitsuru's arm, wanting to know who that handsome guy is. In total shock, Shinkai hears the protagonist casually reply that it's her dad, as she thought he was her older brother. Awkwardly, the new girl explains that he works out a lot, which is why he looks so much younger. Time passes, and afternoon arrives at the school. In another part of the city, things are calm in an elegant coffee shop. Hot coffee is carefully poured, filling a cup on the counter. Working there in an apron, Fuma prepares drinks with a completely serious demeanor. The coffee shop's atmosphere is quiet, with a few customers relaxing at the tables. A blonde woman sitting nearby admires the barista's good looks, finding him charming. As he works, he reflects that Mitsuru always ends up drawing attention and wonders if he should transfer her to another school again. The elegant customer strikes up a conversation, asking what brings him to the shop so suddenly. She complains that she fought with her husband and is tired of the situation, but Fuma just advises her not to get angry, or she'll get wrinkles, and offers her a fresh drink. The woman asks if it isn't too hard being a single dad, leaving him slightly pensive. Maintaining his usual professional posture, the man delivers the coffee to the table with a friendly smile. However, the blonde woman holds onto the saucer, preventing him from moving away from the counter. Alluringly, she invites the employee to dinner, promising she'll let him get off work early. With a polite and ironic gesture, Fuma gently declines the offer, making the customer grumble that he's as boring as ever. He apologizes, keeping his smile, and explains that he needs to pick up his daughter from school. Annoyed, the woman slams the table, asking if the girl doesn't have after-school activities today, and accusing him of making up excuses to get out of the date. Suddenly, the barista notices a strange vibration reflected in the liquid of the cup. Desperate, He changes his tone instantly, begging to leave early and confirming that his daughter really does have club activities. Fuma dashes out of the coffee shop at full speed, thanking her for letting him go. He sprints down the sidewalk, weaving through people without looking back. Without wasting any time, the father runs into a narrow alley between the buildings. His expression is one of pure urgency as he picks up the pace. Using the side walls, he leaps from one side to the other, quickly scaling the structure. The man lands perfectly on top of the building. He continues his frantic rooftop race without slowing down for a second. With an impressive leap, Fuma crosses the chasm separating two gigantic buildings. He lands heavily, slightly cracking the edge of the roof. He quickly gets up, his gaze focused purely on reaching his destination. Meanwhile, the sun is already beginning to set over the horizon of Rikuhara School. Students are walking toward the exit, finishing another long day of classes. Mitsuru waits alone in the plaza, finding it very strange that her father is late. The girl notices a luxurious black car approaching and worries that Fuma might have been in a car accident. The vehicle comes to a smooth stop, and the back door opens silently. The fake blonde detective gets out of the car, calling the girl's name with a sense of urgency. The pair of investigators approaches, stopping right in front of the protagonist. She recognizes them immediately and asks if they still need something. In a deceitful tone, the blonde man says he needs her to come with them to the police station for a moment. Mitsuru refuses instantly, insisting that she's waiting for her father right there. Manipulatively, the man reveals that Fuma got into big trouble and is already being held at the police station, waiting for her. The girl is completely frozen and shocked upon hearing the lie. In a panic, she becomes frantic, asking if her father is okay and demanding to be taken there as quickly as possible. The fake police officer smiles sadistically, praising the new girl's blind obedience. He gestures toward the open vehicle, inviting the young woman to get in. Focused only on helping Fuma, she narrows her eyes with determination, not sensing the danger. The luxury car speeds off, cutting through the main avenue. They drive away from the school area, disappearing into the leafy neighborhood. Traffic flows normally through the city as the afternoon comes to an end. Seconds later, Fuma lands in front of the school, completely out of breath, and doesn't find his daughter anywhere. The father walks hurriedly through the entrance plaza, looking for any sign of the girl among the students. Scratching his head, he finds the situation very strange and wonders if the club activities ran later than usual. Far away, the black car takes a sharp turn, tires screeching on the hot asphalt. The vehicle continues at high speed down a completely deserted and isolated road. Noticing the different scenery through the window, Mitsuru starts to get suspicious of the strange route. She comments that they've been driving for a long time and asks the detectives if it's much further to the station. In the passenger seat, the fake investigator shoots a dark, sharp look through the rearview mirror. Sitting next to her in the back seat, the big guy prepares a cloth with a strange liquid as she asks about her father again. By surprise, the man attacks the girl from behind, forcefully covering her face with the damp cloth. Mitsuru struggles desperately, smelling the unbearable scent of ether invading her nostrils. As the protagonist slowly loses consciousness, the blonde man mocks his partner's actions, commenting that he chose a rather laborious method for a simple kidnapping. The aggressor retorts aggressively, asking if his partner has any complaints about his work. The man in the suit suggests it would have been easier to just knock her out with a clean blow, but a deafening crash violently dents the vehicle's roof. Tearing through the air like a meteor, Fuma lands brutally on top of the moving car, completely destroying the bodywork. In the back seat, the large kidnapper freezes in fear, feeling the crushing pressure of the attack. Furious, Fuma screams, demanding they return his daughter immediately. At that, the fake blonde detective tells his partner to grab the girl and keep moving. The car skids violently down the road, losing control completely after the impact. Sliding on the asphalt, the father brakes with his own body, trying to stabilize himself. He looks up, staring at the wrecked vehicle just ahead. Following his orders, the big guy runs off, carrying the unconscious protagonist on his shoulders. Desperate, the man shouts Mitsuru's name as he watches her being taken away. Without wasting a moment, Fuma takes a gigantic leap, heading toward the kidnappers. However, the blonde man in the suit grabs his ankle in mid-air, stopping his advance. With a strong pull, the fake investigator throws his opponent back to the ground. The man tells him to wait a moment, leaving Fuma completely surprised by his absurd strength. Landing softly on the dented car, the enemy warns the barista that he's not going anywhere. Dripping with sarcasm, the criminal complains that the vehicle was brand new and demands payment for the repairs. Completely annoyed by the provocation, the father clicks his tongue and lunges forward to attack. The two begin a frantic exchange of punches and kicks in the middle of the empty road. During the fight, Fuma blocks a heavy knee strike, feeling the pressure of the attack. The impact of the blow makes him slide back, dragging his feet on the pavement. The fake detective also retreats a bit, looking frustrated by the successful defense. The enemy praises his opponent's fighting skills, But the father soon notices a dangerous move. Quickly drawing a gun, the blonde man points it directly at his target, telling him not to move. Maintaining an unshakable posture in the face of danger, Fuma states with absolute certainty that they are definitely not from the police. With evident fury, he demands to know who the hell this guy is. Ignoring the question, the kidnapper celebrates the situation, stating that his master will be very pleased with this unexpected harvest. The protagonist is very confused, trying to understand who exactly the criminal is referring to. With no patience for riddles, Fuma runs at full speed toward the gunman, demanding to know Mitsuru's fate. Taking advantage of the frontal assault, the man in the suit fires several shots in a row. With extreme agility, the father dodges all the bullets, moving his body fluidly. The gunman is shocked to realize his enemy survived and is now right in front of him. Seizing the perfect opening, Fuma lands a brutal flying kick to his opponent's chest. The movement flows naturally as he lands, turning his body with the weight of the attack. With the violent blow, the fake detective is thrown far back, hitting the ground hard. Further ahead, his large partner hears the noise and glances over his shoulder at the commotion. Maintaining a frightening coldness, the man just watches his companion get the worst of it. Far away, the blonde man tries to get up from the asphalt, still staggering from the impact. Cracking his own neck, the criminal quickly recomposes himself, returning to normal. Fuma gets into a fighting stance again, realizing the man is quite tough. In a brutal dash, the enemy charges forward, destroying the ground with each step and reaching out for his target. The aggressor grabs the protagonist's clothes, preventing any chance of escape. In the same instant, he lands a devastating punch right into Fuma's stomach. The agonizing pain instantly knocks the wind out of the father. Continuing the combo, the kidnapper lands a side kick, sending the barista flying through the air. Savoring his advantage in the fight, the blonde man wipes his lips, focused on destroying his opponent. But Fuma manages to react at the last second, blocking the next blow and immobilizing the enemy's arm. Suddenly, the father's attention is stolen when the big guy's voice echoes through the area, calling for a Kai. His accomplice opens his briefcase, releasing a mass of those slimy creatures, and declares that the fight ends there. Shocked by the abomination, the protagonist questions what kind of disgusting thing that is. Without wasting time, the multi-eyed monsters leap toward the enemy like a swarm. As soon as they hit his body, the beasts explode, causing a loud bang and kicking up dust. The attack releases a dense gas, making Fuma cough desperately while covering his face. As the blonde man turns to leave, the father feels his vision blur, losing his balance. Cursing his bad luck, he succumbs to the mysterious effect, passing out on the asphalt. Sometime later, Fuma wakes with a start, still trying to wave away the imaginary smoke from his mind. He gasps for air, realizing he's lying in a completely different place. The environment is revealed to be a hospital room where he is surrounded by two men in suits. The older man with a beard and glasses calmly asks if the patient is awake yet. Only then does the protagonist notice the heavy handcuff chaining his wrist to the metal bed. Outraged, he asks if he's being arrested, which is curtly confirmed by the investigator. The detective shows his ID, revealing they analyzed the security cameras and saw Fuma breaking into the school armed, before all the destruction. In deep despair, the barista clutches his head, swearing his innocence and asking what reason he would have to blow up his daughter's school. Pointing his finger furiously, he begs the police officers to save Mitsuru, who was just taken by imposters. The mature police officer furrows his brow, not understanding any of the confusing story. Silence hangs in the room as the man takes a long drag from his cigarette. He explains that they were called to help a man who had collapsed in an alley, and assures him that the patient's daughter is perfectly safe at home with her mother. The revelation hits Fuma like a ton of bricks, leaving him completely frozen. Holding his head again, the father tries to reason, remembering he doesn't have a wife and trying to find logic in this madness. Soon it clicks, and he deduces that these officers must also be under the criminal's control. Overcome by tension, the protagonist grits his teeth as he listens to the recommendation to keep resting. The pair of detectives leaves the room, saying they will take him to the station when he has calmed down. The patient is left abandoned in the solitude of the hospital room. Consumed by the urgency to act, Fuma crumples the bedsheet with force. He clenches his fist, determined to rescue Mitsuru no matter the cost. Meanwhile, in the hallway, the guards are relaxing, chatting distractedly near the door. Aware of the surveillance outside, the prisoner fixes his gaze on the large glass window. Fully dressed and free from his restraints, he stands up, eyeing the unconventional escape route. Without any hesitation, Fuma leaps from the building, diving toward the city to hunt down the kidnappers. Landing hard on the asphalt, Fuma breaks his fall with his hands. Without wasting a single second, the father starts running at full speed through the city streets again. But he stops abruptly when he notices an exit sign pointing to the right in the middle of the path. The protagonist finds himself trapped in a bizarre labyrinth of dead hedges and decides to follow the sign's direction. Hurrying around the corner, he continues running through the narrow hedge corridors. Exhaustion is already setting in when the barista comes face to face with another exit sign identical to the last one. Overcome by fury, he unleashes his black fire aura, making the energy explode around his body. Analyzing the strange environment, Fuma concludes that he has been thrown into an alternate dimension. Desperate, he screams Mitsuru's name at the top of his lungs, as the echo reverberates off the distorted buildings. In another part of this bizarre place, the two kidnappers walk calmly toward an abandoned factory. The big guy carries the protagonist, still completely unconscious, on his shoulders. Entering the dark and empty warehouse, the pair approaches the center of the area. Without the slightest care, the henchman throws the girl's body hard onto the concrete floor. With a submissive posture, the man announces that they have brought the tribute as ordered. The fake blonde detective makes an elegant gesture, offering the young woman to a mysterious figure covered by a cloak. Full of pride, the kidnapper guarantees that this merchandise is of the highest quality and very rare to find. The cloaked creature ignores the compliment and asks why the blonde man's clothes are so tattered. Revealing its grotesque, multi-eyed face, the abomination asks if they ran into any kind of trouble on the way. The big guy hesitates for a moment, showing slight nervousness at his master's questioning. At that, the fake investigator plays down the situation, claiming it was just a small, already resolved setback. He assures him that the meddler who tried to steal their prize is locked away in that space and will never get out. Far away, the distorted landscape of the alternate dimension continues to isolate Fuma from the real world. The barista reappears on his knees on the floor of a hospital room, completely frustrated. Reflecting on the trap, the father understands that the only way to escape that place is by finding a spatial rift. He fixes his gaze on the closed door of the room, calculating his next move. In a feigned fit of rage, the protagonist lets out a terrifying scream, deliberately drawing attention. Outside, a group of doctors with monstrous appearances rushes down the hallway, asking what happened. The bizarre squad bursts into the room and is confused to find the patient missing from the bed. Strategically hidden on top of the doorframe, Fuma watches one of the doctors wonder where he went. Taking advantage of the enemy's complete distraction, the father launches himself from above, landing precise blows on the guards all at once. Giving no chance for a reaction, the protagonist pins one of the henchmen to the floor while beating up another. The fight continues swiftly, with Fuma landing a devastating punch right in the face of another monster. Finishing the quick cleanup, he lands a powerful side kick, knocking the last adversary away. With all the guards knocked out on the floor, the barista rushes through the open door of the room. Running down the hallway, he mentally apologizes to the unconscious patients and focuses on finding a quick way out. Fuma sprints at full speed through the empty facilities of that bizarre hospital. His footsteps echo on the smooth floor, right next to a sign indicating the emergency exit. Suddenly, the father skids to a halt, sensing a strange presence right in front of him. A chilling voice echoes through the corridor, calling the fugitive a patient. A horrifying doctor with messy white hair warns that he will not tolerate any mess in his own hospital. Facing the creature head-on, the protagonist keeps his guard up, noticing that the enemy located him easily. He replays the doctor's words in his head, finding it curious that he calls himself the owner of the place. Fuma quickly concludes that defeating this man in the suit is the best way forward. Without hesitation, the father charges at the monster, believing this will finally guarantee his escape. The macabre doctor just lets out a sadistic laugh, holding out his hand toward his opponent. Fuma is caught completely off guard, entangled in a sort of gigantic web that appears out of nowhere. The impact stops the protagonist's attack as he tries to understand what bizarre magic this is. Dozens of white, ghostly hands sprout from a flesh portal, trying to grab him from all sides. He unleashes his black flames, trying to break free by force as he's pulled into a pool of blood. Seeing the attack fail, Fuma grits his teeth in frustration, realizing his magic is useless in this space. Cursing with hatred, the father sinks deeper into the red abyss, unable to fight off the monsters. Soon, he is completely swallowed by the sea of blood, disappearing into the darkness. In the blink of an eye, the protagonist regains consciousness, opening his eyes in a brightly lit room. The scene changes drastically, and he finds himself strapped to a surgical table, surrounded by several shadowy surgeons. Struggling against the metal restraints, Fuma demands to know what the heck is going on. A gloved hand raises a scalpel as the macabre doctor's voice scoffs at the question. The horrifying doctor approaches the patient, coldly announcing that he's going to cut him into little pieces. Tension fills the barista's face as he focuses all his strength on trying to break the chains. Preparing the sharp instruments, the surgeon tells the victim to relax, because the work will be done very slowly. One of the monsters brings the sharp blade very close to the patient's face, promising to start by taking out his eyes. With the scalpel inches from his own eyeball, the father decides to resort to his last option. Shouting with all the fury he has left, he summons the presence of his main weapon. Far away in the outside world, a metallic glint appears atop the city's buildings, answering the call. Tearing through the winds like a missile, the mysterious object travels at extremely high speed. The weapon breaks through dimensions and smashes through the side of the hospital building with a deafening impact. The crash startles the macabre doctors, who stop the surgery to stare at the destroyed door. Without a trace of fear on his face, Fuma declares that this time, the monsters are the ones who will be diced. A colossal black katana blasts through the wall of the operating room, sending debris flying everywhere. The giant sword spins freely in the air, emanating an overwhelming power. One of the fake surgeons notices the approaching blade and is shocked by the sight of the katana. The weapon floats right above the protagonist while the monsters desperately try to stop the counterattack. Slicing through the wind, the sword begins a brutal spinning motion, knocking away the creature's hands that were holding the victim. A trail of black energy follows the blade as it mercilessly accelerates through the room. In the blink of an eye, the katana slashes across the chief doctor's back, dropping him to the hospital floor. Fuma remains motionless on the surgical table while his sword massacres every enemy in the room. The katana spins, cutting through the air, and embeds itself heavily in the floor. With the impact, the metal straps holding the protagonist are completely shattered. Freeing him once and for all, he quickly reaches out and grabs the hilt of his weapon. Fuma assumes an aggressive fighting stance, facing the macabre surgeon head-on. The monster's eyes widen in absolute terror at this turn of events. Far away in the real world, the kidnapper's car speeds along a mountain road. The vehicle takes the curves, its tires screeching on the smooth asphalt. They continue their frantic escape, cutting through the isolated forest. Inside the car, the fake blonde detective lets out a mocking laugh, celebrating that they succeeded in their mission again. Relaxing in the back seat with the briefcase, he grumbles that the girl's father was a very annoying brat. His large partner at the wheel nods in agreement, exuding satisfaction over the easy victory. However, the driver notices something strange and glances in the rearview mirror. Just then, a ghostly hand appears out of nowhere, touching the magic briefcase on the blonde man's lap. Back in the bizarre hospital, Fuma leaps with all his strength, preparing a devastating vertical slash with his katana. The fake doctor looks up in total desperation as he sees the blade descending toward him. With a brutal movement, the protagonist tears reality apart, shredding the monster and the entire scene around him. In the real world, the briefcase on the criminal's lap begins to crack violently under the touch of the mysterious hand. The fake investigator is completely shocked to see the object explode, releasing a pool of blood. Tearing through the dimension from the inside out, Fuma emerges in the back seat, driving his sword right into the kidnapper's shoulder. The man in the suit roars in pain as the car loses control, skidding across the empty road. Ignoring the chaos, the father glares at the enemy, demanding to know where his daughter is. In a fit of rage, he grabs the blonde man's hair, pulling his head back and pressing the blade to his neck to force a quick answer. Far from this chaos, an old abandoned factory serves as a hideout in the middle of nowhere. Inside, the grotesque, multi-eyed creature looks at a phone screen and notices something. At its feet, a half-naked, chained woman reports with a trembling voice that the merchandise is ready for shipment. Relaxing on a lounge chair, the monster ignores the information and asks what she just said. The abomination gets up furiously, kicking the coffee table and cursing the hostage for trying to negotiate the deal. With the violent impact, the cell phone flies through the air, landing on the hard concrete floor. Without a shred of mercy, the creature grabs the woman's blonde hair, tearing an agonizing scream from her. Crying desperately, she begs for forgiveness, but the monster sarcastically asks if apologizing means she's admitting she made a mistake. The scream of pain echoes through the warehouse, drawing the attention of the suited henchman waiting nearby, armed with pieces of pipe. The group of criminals freezes in surprise upon seeing an unknown man standing in the middle of their hideout, holding a giant katana. Dropping the woman to the floor, their master confronts the intruder, wanting to know who the hell this cocky guy is. Fuma remains motionless, exuding an intimidating aura in front of all those adversaries ready to fight. Pointing his weapon directly at the macabre creature, the father deduces that this bizarre fellow must be the leader of the whole operation. The multi-eyed abomination retorts with disdain, stating that the intruder's identity means nothing to him. Certain of his superiority, the boss orders his henchmen to take out the intruder. The gang charges forward furiously, yelling and raising their metal weapons to attack all at once in a cowardly move. Keeping his cool, the protagonist lowers his arm and firmly plants the blade of his sword into the ground. He raises his gaze with a dark fury, making it clear that he doesn't need to use his main weapon against trash like them. With an extremely fast advance, the barista lands a heavy punch on the first enemy, who tries to approach from the front. Keeping up the pace, he continues to dodge and counter, attack the aggressors in the middle of the crossfire. Giving no chance for defense, Fuma drives his fist right into another suited man's face, deforming his features with the blow. Just then, the big guy appears from behind, raising an iron bar to cowardly smash the protagonist's head. Acting on pure instinct, the father spins his body, grabs the attacker, and violently slams him onto the concrete floor. Having finished off all the henchmen in seconds, Fuma lifts his face, revealing an expression of pure hatred and exhaustion. The Makeover boss widens his dozens of eyes, panicking completely as he sees his army so easily defeated. Before the creature can react, the father has already recovered his sword and leaps toward it at full speed for the attack. The abomination lets out a pathetic screech as the sharp blade cuts through its body, deep and mercilessly. The impact of the attack throws the monster backward, spraying a lot of blood throughout the dark environment. Falling to its knees, the beast coughs up blood, hearing the slow footsteps of the protagonist approaching from behind. Completely submissive, the boss begs him to calm down as the tip of the katana rests menacingly on his shoulders. The barista tilts his head, questioning with a chilling coldness about his daughter's whereabouts and the reason for the whole kidnapping. Trembling with fear, the monster stammers, confessing that he was just following orders from his superiors on the mission. Furious with the lame excuse, Fuma drives the sword into the creature, screaming and demanding to know the name of the mastermind while it roars in pain. Holding a bizarre object resembling a damaged eyeball, the abomination reveals the name of Lord Hyakume. The sun illuminates the destroyed facade of the abandoned factory, showing that the battle has finally ended. Inside the warehouse office, the protagonist types furiously on a laptop left on the desk, trying to find clues. Lying on the floor, the monster crawls, warning that this lord is an immeasurable entity from the spirit world, and that a human could never face him in combat. Ignoring the creature's threats, the father discovers that the system uses the dark web and grumbles that he urgently needs a password to access the information. He examines the papers scattered on the desk, concluding that the place served as a base for a large illegal trafficking scheme. Finally, in a dark room, Mitsuru remains unconscious, leaning against the cold factory wall. Relieved to have arrived in time, Fuma gently holds the girl's face, telling her it's finally time to go home and rest. Night falls over the city, illuminating the roof of the hideout, which is now completely silent. Calm footsteps echo on the warehouse's concrete floor, marking the arrival of a new presence. A man in a suit walks calmly, stepping right on the mutilated body of the multi-eyed creature that was beaten earlier. The carcass of the former boss lies lifeless in a huge pool of its own blood, in the middle of the hall. With his phone to his ear, the man informs his superior that all the henchmen at the location were completely exterminated by the intruder. On the other end of the line, the monstrous lord's voice explodes with rage, demanding to know if there were any survivors at the base. The informant spots the blonde hostage cowering in a dark corner and asks what should be done with her, simply agreeing calmly with the response he receives. Completely traumatized and covered in sweat, the woman cries, unable to stop trembling in the face of the horrific scene. At that moment, the man pulls out a pair of long blades, twirling the tools between his fingers intimidatingly. He slowly approaches the prisoner as she desperately tries to figure out who was responsible for the whole massacre. Pressing the scissors to the victim's neck, the killer reveals that the culprit was an incredibly strong young man wielding a bizarre sword. Exuding pure evil, he lets out a sadistic laugh, savoring the woman's terror before carrying out his execution orders. The woman cries desperately with the blade against her face, begging for her life and promising to tell everything she knows. But an agonizing scream echoes through the night, breaking the silence around the abandoned factory. Far from all this horror, Mitsuru sleeps peacefully under the covers in her dark room. The girl slowly opens her eyes, waking from a deep sleep. Sitting up in bed, the protagonist is completely confused, not understanding how she got back to her own home. Scratching her head, she tries to remember, recalling that the last thing she saw was the inside of a police car. At that moment, a delicious aroma fills the room, catching her attention. Fuma appears at the door wearing an apron and holding a plate of hot food, noticing that his daughter has woken up hungry. In the dining room, the father serves the meal, telling her he made her favorite croquettes, which makes the girl jump for joy. Savoring the food, Mitsuru stuffs her cheeks, feeling immense happiness. Watching the scene fondly, the barista tells her to chew slowly so she doesn't choke, but he soon changes his tone, telling the young girl to eat her vegetables too, but she pouts, complaining that she needs meat to grow. Casually eating, the new girl mentions that the tall police officers said her father was in trouble, which is why she got in their car. Completely outraged, Fuma points his finger, giving her a harsh scolding and asking how many times he's told her not to follow strangers. The girl turns her face away, sulking, and justifies that she only did it because she was extremely worried about his safety. Seeing his daughter's innocent intention, the man just lets out a tired sigh, setting his anger aside. He gets up, telling her to keep eating while he goes back to the kitchen to prepare another portion. At the stove, the oil sizzles in the pan, frying more golden croquettes. Taking advantage of the distance, Fuma answers his phone with a serious expression, confirming his identity to the person on the line. On the other end of the call, a cheerful voice answers in front of a computer with multiple monitors, calling the protagonist partner. The mysterious contact enjoys a hamburger in his swivel chair, wanting to know the reason for the sudden call. Being direct, the father says he needs an urgent investigation and sets up a meeting at the coffee shop for the next day. Morning arrives, illuminating the facade of the cafe where the protagonist works. Behind the counter, Fuma watches the news on television, which reports the discovery of several bodies at that abandoned factory in the mountains. The report shows images of the location, stating that it was a gang war and that a woman was found in a deplorable state. The barista narrows his eyes suspiciously, noticing there is no mention of the two kidnappers, and concludes that someone very influential is covering up the situation. His thoughts are interrupted when someone taps on the counter, getting his attention for spacing out. A flamboyant figure wearing a short skirt and a tied-up blouse strikes an exaggerated pose, demanding a coffee right now. Completely shocked by the sight, Fuma spits out his own drink, not believing what he's seeing. He looks the bizarre customer up and down, asking who the hell this person is, while the visitor just giggles. The flamboyant individual leans over the counter, offended, asking if a little disguise has made him that unrecognizable. The father finally recognizes his hacker partner and panics at the questionable choice of clothes. Exuding confidence, the informant assures him that the look suits him perfectly, but Fuma covers his face and tells him to get straight to the point. A short time later, a cup of hot coffee is placed on an isolated table in the shop. Opening his laptop, the hacker explains that the website from the other day requires a password, and the barista asks if he can handle it. Cracking his knuckles with confidence, the expert guarantees it's a piece of cake and tells him to leave the job in his hands. The contact's nimble hands begin typing furiously, breaking through the system's security. In a matter of seconds, the clandestine website is unlocked, leaving the protagonist completely impressed by the absurd speed. Pointing to the screen, the informant explains that it's a black market where they trade weapons, women, and children. Fuma keeps his eyes fixed on the monitor, focused on absorbing every detail of the dirty scheme. The page displays the silhouette of a child valued at an exorbitant price due to her high magical aptitude. The expert points out that this listing is much more complex and expensive than the other common merchandise listed there. Resting his chin in his hand, the father understands why his daughter is being hunted, realizing it wasn't his old enemies who found him. Taking a sip of his drink, the hacker calmly asks if his partner needs any other favors. Clasping his hands and forcing a friendly tone, Fuma asks him to find a new, safer address, making his contact spit out his coffee. Completely outraged, the informant yells, reminding his partner of his accumulated debts and making it clear that he doesn't work for free. With no other choice, the protagonist clasps his hands, begging for more time and appealing to their long friendship. Tired of arguing, the expert gives in, agreeing to help, but demands that the barista stay off the radar until they find a new hideout. He warns in a dark tone that if the assassin organization finds him again, it will be the end of the line, which the father agrees to with a gulp, shifting his demeanor to that of a cold-blooded killer. Fuma internally decides that he will eliminate anyone who tries to lay a finger on his daughter. Later, the morning sun illuminates the grounds of Rikuhara School as the normal routine resumes. Inside the classroom, Shinkai is startled when Mitsuru excitedly throws her backpack on the desk. Firm footsteps echo through the classroom, announcing the entrance of someone important. The new girl's big eyes widen with curiosity to see who is taking charge of the class. Standing with his back to the students, a long-haired man politely introduces himself as Fuji Nohara, the new substitute teacher. Turning to face them, exuding charisma, he expresses how happy he is to meet all the students. The teacher acknowledges the class's grief over their former teacher, but promises to protect each and every one of their lives from now on with great effort. Impressed by the speech, the protagonist blushes slightly, finding the man extremely incredible and heroic. Just then, the educator adjusts his glasses, letting a mysterious shadow cover part of his face. Breaking the mood, he calls Mitsuru to the front to congratulate her on her bravery during the last incident, catching the girl completely by surprise. As she walks through the aisles of desks, the other students whisper, remembering the rumors that she saved a classmate during the chaos. Standing next to the giant teacher, Mitsuru scratches the back of her neck, embarrassed, stating that she didn't do anything special and just acted on instinct. The girl nervously tries to explain that her body just moved on its own, drawing a friendly laugh from the teacher. Clapping warmly, Nohara encourages the rest of the class to follow the fine example of their transfer student. The protagonist just stares at the teacher in silence, still a bit surprised by all the sudden attention. The day passes quickly, and the orange late afternoon light bathes the open corridors of the residential building. Arriving home with energy, Mitsuru bursts through the door, kicks off her shoes, and announces she's home. Walking barefoot down the hall, She foolishly reflects on the compliment she received from the handsome teacher earlier. However, upon entering the living room, illuminated by the setting sun, the new girl finds the house empty. Her eyes quickly focus on a piece of paper strategically left on the dining table. The note from her father, with a cute drawing, says he'll be late because of an appointment and tells her to eat first. Accepting the situation, the young woman sits down before the hearty meal and picks up her chopsticks, ready to dig in. She wears an expression of pure happiness, warmed by Fuma's affection even though he isn't there. Far from that peaceful environment, the night darkens the streets dominated by the bright signs of a gambling house. In the alley next to the establishment, two dangerous-looking thugs smoke distractedly while guarding the area with baseball bats in hand. It all starts inside a noisy gambling house, where a figure walks calmly through the aisle of machines. A few thugs are relaxing, laughing loudly and smoking without a care in the world. Leaning on his baseball bat, a guard watches the activity through the glass, not noticing the sinister aura exuding from behind him. The place has a control room, well isolated from the rest of the main hall. Inside this restricted area, a man with monstrous features and sharp claws is talking to someone. He reports the situation to a mysterious figure in a hat who is standing before a macabre portal made of flesh. Back in the security room, one of the men smoking notices a strange movement approaching. The glass shatters violently as the body of one of the guards is thrown with full force into the room. Bursting in with full force, Fuma destroys the entrance, sending the thugs flying in a display of pure strength. Wearing his work apron, the protagonist maintains a furious and determined gaze. The thugs get up confused and ask who he is, warning the intruder that he's made a huge mistake. The father ignores the threats and observes the machines, noticing they are completely rusted and falling apart. From this, he concludes that the information he received was spot on, as this place is definitely not a regular gambling house. Annoyed by the silence, the thugs yell, demanding he answer the question. They draw their firearms, pointing them at the intruder, and asking once more what he wants there. The sound of triggers being pulled echoes through the room, confirming the imminent tension. Completely unshaken, the intruder demands they bring the man named Hyakume to him immediately. One of the thugs presses the barrel of his pistol right against the protagonist's forehead, mocking the request and telling him to apologize before getting lost. Suddenly, the criminal is shocked as he loses his weapon in a move too fast to follow. With crushing force, Fuma destroys the pistol with just one hand while staring down his adversary. Seeing the situation spiral out of control, the other thugs panic and open fire on the intruder. Sliding across the hall, the barista dodges every bullet with superhuman agility. Taking advantage of the opening in the enemy's attack, he draws his katana, maintaining absolute focus. In a brutal sequence, the father cuts down his adversaries in the blink of an eye, sending blood flying through the air. He continues his merciless advance, taking down the thugs with precise strikes. Completely desperate, the remaining guards fire relentlessly, trying to hit their target at any cost. An authoritative voice echoes through the room, demanding the mess stop and ordering everyone to lower their weapons. The protagonist immediately halts his attack, paying attention to the call. Standing at the top of the stairs, a well-dressed man asks the customer to have a little chat with him. The elegant man introduces himself as Shuichi, stating he is the manager of the establishment. The commotion moves from the hall straight to the door of the manager's office. Inside, Shuichi serves a cup of tea to his guest, apologizing for his subordinate's lack of manners. Fuma remains seated in silence with his sword resting on the floor, exuding pure suspicion. Settling into the sofa across from him, the man in the suit directly asks if the intruder is some kind of monster hunter. The father analyzes the situation, deducing that this man isn't the target he's looking for, but he's definitely part of the enemy organization. Suddenly, the protagonist's vision distorts, revealing the illusion of a skeletal monk standing right behind his host. The demonic creature exudes a macabre energy while holding a string of prayer beads. The intruder's eyes widen in complete shock at the sudden presence. Thinking he's going crazy, he rubs his own face, trying to focus his vision. When he looks back at the sofa, the specter has completely vanished, leaving him very confused. Unaware of the tension, Shuichi says that the guest doesn't necessarily have to answer the previous question. He comments that the display of strength outside was impressive, and that the intruder possesses the same dangerous aura as the hunters who usually inhabit the underworld. Keeping calm, the protagonist takes a sip of the hot tea, just listening to the speech. The manager tries to be diplomatic, assuring him that he doesn't want to create enmity with the hunter organization and offers to grant the young man a wish. Cynically, the man proposes a peace treaty, stating that neither of them will lose out if they don't interfere in each other's business. Placing the cup on the table, the father announces that he will reveal his wish. In the blink of an eye, he clenches his fists furiously, demanding the head of the faction's master. Shuichi's friendly expression immediately vanishes, replaced by a dark and hostile glare. Pointing a finger in the enemy's face, Fuma declares that he will only let everyone live if they give him Hyakume's whereabouts. The manager gives a wicked smile, concluding that the negotiation is over. Drawing a gun from his jacket, the man in the suit tells the intruder to die, calling him trash for not knowing his place. With sharp reflexes, the protagonist throws his body back as the bullet grazes past his face. Without giving him a chance for a second shot, the barista lunges over the table, drawing his katana in a lethal motion. The gleaming blade slices through the air, cutting the firearm and the manager's limb in a single devastating attack. The impact throws the man to the office floor as he roars in pain from the loss of his own arm. The door is kicked open by a new wave of thugs who invade the room, screaming to finish off the intruder. The gang rushes in with metal pipes in hand, prepared to collectively and cowardly beat the intruder. Fuma turns his head to face the crowd, coldly preparing his sword. In an extremely fast advance, he slaughters all the henchmen at once, turning the room into a bloodbath. Cowering on the floor, Shuichi panics completely, stammering that such a display of power is impossible. The protagonist approaches the defeated manager, preparing his weapon for the final blow. Delivering a heavy vertical slash, the father tries to end his adversary's life. The sword makes a metallic clang as it hits something invisible that suddenly protects the target. Fuma pulls the blade back, trying to understand what kind of dirty trick just interfered. He soon realizes that the attack was completely blocked by a wall that cannot be seen. A strange sensation catches the intruder's attention, and he looks up, searching for the source of the magic. The mysterious shadow of the skeletal monk appears on the scene, confirming that the barrier is his doing. The creature approaches, lamenting that someone so young has already taken so many lives. Showing its macabre face and a glowing eye, the specter declares that the protagonist's destiny is hell. Furious at the hypocrisy, the barista points his katana, demanding to know if this is the scumbag who ordered his daughter's kidnapping. Ignoring the question, the monk heavily strikes his staff on the floor, while joining his hands in a mystical gesture. A dense, purple energy begins to leak from the floor, forming magic circles around the bizarre enemy. Cursed symbols float in the air as the abomination chants a dark and threatening incantation. The magic explodes, creating an overwhelming shockwave that tears through the entire office. Faced with such absurd power, Fuma's eyes widen as he gets into a defensive stance to withstand the imminent impact. Fuma stands firm in the center of the purple storm, fighting against the crushing gravity of the magic. All around him, the casino's henchmen are brutally crushed to the floor, screaming in pain as they bleed. With pure physical effort, the protagonist digs his feet into the floor to keep from being knocked down by the pressure. He lets out a low groan, gritting his teeth as the invisible force tries to crush him. Focusing all his energy, the father raises the katana with both hands and lets out a fierce cry. In an explosive motion, he brings the blade down heavily against the ground, causing a thunderous impact. The skeletal specter's fleshless face widens in shock, feeling the sudden interruption of its spell. With that, the magical barrier is completely shattered, breaking like glass around the monk. The spell loses its effect, and the ghost's body rapidly begins to turn into sparkling dust. Pieces of purple magic fall through the air as the intruder watches the danger end. The manager, Shuichi, is still on the floor, listening to his opponent complain that the barrier was annoying to deal with. The barista turns his gaze toward the defeated enemy, silently recalling the location of the monk's quarters. With a quick flick of his wrist, Fuma shakes his stained sword, flinging the excess blood onto the floor. He reflects coldly, admitting that the enemy faction is far more dangerous than he had calculated. Taking advantage of this distraction, Shuichi jumps up and runs desperately towards the office exit. Hanging from the windowsill, the manager sounds cold, concluding that the only chance of escape is to jump. He hesitantly peeks at the building's height, trembling at the imminent danger. Without giving the enemy time to flee, Fuma appears from behind and violently grabs his hair. With a strong pull, the protagonist throws the cowardly man back onto the office floor. The man in the suit coughs up blood as his chest is brutally crushed by the intruder's boot. Pressing his foot down firmly, the father states that he already knows about the faction schemes and demands the exact location of Hyakume. Faced with silence, he increases the pressure of his foot, completely ignoring the prisoner's pain. Changing tactics, Fuma offers to let the manager live if he reveals where the record book is hidden. The scene cuts to the nighttime facade of a huge industrial building belonging to Obayashi Chemical. In a dark alley of the facility, a male voice calmly reports that the area is clear. Two henchmen are on their nightly patrol, holding flashlights to light the way. Walking in front, one of the guards looks back and sees his partner collapsing unconscious on the ground. The guard spins around terrified, asking what happened, not noticing Fuma standing right behind him. With extreme speed, the intruder delivers a sharp blow to the back of the security guard's neck with the hilt of his katana. The thug's body drops to the pavement as the protagonist silently advances through the factory entrance. The defeated manager's memory echoes in Fuma's mind, challenging him to find the records at the suburban factory. Back in the present, the barista gently pushes the iron door to enter the facility. Through the crack, he observes an absurd number of armed criminals chatting in the warehouse. Near the entrance, two thugs are smoking distractedly until one of them notices the movement. The guard turns his head in surprise and comes face to face with the intruder already in an attack stance. The other guards are instantly on alert, yelling to know who the intruder is. Without wasting a second, the father charges forward, landing a devastating punch right in the first henchman's face. Taking advantage of the momentum, he draws his sword, its steel glinting under the warehouse light. In a clean and merciless cut, the protagonist slashes an enemy's chest, sending blood flying into the air. Grabbing the next one by the neck, he finishes the thug with another lethal strike from his katana. The commotion draws the attention of the rest of the gang, who yell orders to take down the intruder at any cost. Fuma launches a frontal offensive, running straight at the approaching armed crowd. Dozens more henchmen rush down the metal stairs, calling for reinforcements from all directions. Maintaining an unshakable posture, the barista glances over his shoulder, questioning if this was their entire army. Overcome by fury, he declares that he will crush every single one of them and launches a brutal spinning attack against the mass of enemies. With an acrobatic leap, the father slices one of the guards, splitting his body with precision. Landing firmly, he follows up with an upward slash, tearing through the next adversary's torso. A brute tries a cowardly attack from behind, but the protagonist immediately senses the threat. Like a flash, the intruder breaks through the defensive line, cutting down the entire group at once. The merciless bloodbath continues, with the barista decapitating several gang members at the same time. The surviving thugs panic completely upon seeing their partner's head rolling on the floor. Desperate, some of them turn their backs and start running, crying in terror. One of the faction's leaders tries to stop the retreat, yelling for the group to attack together. But before he can finish his sentence, the sharp blade lethally pierces the leader's face. Fuma pulls his sword back, felling the corpse as the rest of the gang watches, paralyzed. Ignoring the casualties, a new wave of criminals descends the stairs, roaring with anger to try and crush the enemy. With his gaze fixed purely on killing, the protagonist calculates the rhythm of his next advance. He pushes off the floor, disappearing from his opponent's field of view. Ascending the stairs like a blur, Fuma shoots toward the crowd, giving them no time to defend. The thugs attack empty air, not understanding where their target went, until their bodies are sliced to ribbons in milliseconds. A gigantic trail of blood paints the wall as Fuma finishes off the last member of that platoon. Walking over the fallen bodies, he calmly approaches the blue door at the end of the hall. Inside the office, a security guard is hiding with a pistol, ready to ambush the intruder. Sensing the trap, the father delivers a violent slash, tearing through the metal structure and hitting the guard by surprise. The thug falls backward, screaming in terror as his defense is completely destroyed. The intruder pushes the cut door open, casting a deadly glare at whoever is inside. Pointing his katana, he threatens the sector leader, warning that if he wants to live, he'd better hand over the record book immediately. Cowering on the floor near the desk, the warehouse boss stammers in terror, agreeing to the order. Quickly, the trembling man types in the password, unlocking the small safe hidden in the room. He hands the requested document to the intruder, desperately begging for mercy. Flipping through the pages, the protagonist analyzes the macabre list detailing the human merchandise trafficked by the faction. Suddenly, a specific piece of information alarmingly catches his attention. The record shows a drawing of an eyeball, indicating that the next official delivery is called Blued Eye. Absorbed in reading the evidence, Fuma doesn't notice the warehouse boss silently drawing a gun. In an act of pure cowardice, the thug stands up and aims the pistol at the barista's head, telling him to just die already. Fuma delivers a lethal blow, smashing the safe and all surrounding objects to pieces with his katana. Analyzing the scattered documents, his gaze locks onto the record mentioning the delivery called Blued Eye. Fury contorts the protagonist's face as he quickly realizes this disgusting note refers to his daughter. Without any mercy, the intruder keeps his foot pressed firmly on the defeated thug's head against the floor. With the information he needed in hand, the father sheathes his sword and calmly walks toward the illuminated exit of the warehouse. Hidden in the darkness of the alley, the skeletal monk watches his target leave from the shadows. The macabre specter declares with a sadistic tone that the young man's fate is already sealed. At that moment, the barista senses a strange presence and suspiciously glances back. He stares at the deserted street illuminated by the lampposts, finding no sign of a threat. Trying to understand the feeling, the man just squints, finding the situation very suspicious. The day dawns sunny, highlighting the clean facade of Rikuhara School. In the school hallways, female students run excitedly, following instructions to wait outside for the health exam. In the midst of the hustle and bustle, Mitsuru lets out a gigantic yawn, showing extreme exhaustion. Shinkai hugs her friend from behind, affectionately asking if she didn't sleep well. Rubbing her eyes, the new girl explains that for some reason, she's been feeling incredibly sleepy lately. Inside the nurse's office, the doctor in charge crosses her legs and calls the next student on the list. The girl responds cheerfully, detaching from her friend and running into the room. Now before the professional, the young woman confirms her identity, while the woman checks her clipboard. With a very suspicious look, the doctor announces that the exam will begin and asks the student to take off her clothes. Mitsuru feels a bit awkward but agrees to follow the standard procedure. Outside in the silent hallway, the sound of the nurse's office door being locked echoes faintly. Moments later, the protagonist is already dressed and gives a little jump of joy upon hearing that the check-up is over. Completely innocent, she thanks the doctor for her time and walks toward the office exit. The woman exudes pure malice, assuring her there's nothing to be thankful for. The doctor then draws a large red circle right on the photo in the new girl's file, perfectly marking the target. The orange late afternoon light illuminates the exterior walkway of the residential building. In the kitchen at home, the father peacefully prepares dinner, stirring a pot on the stove. The protagonist reflects that the faction must have a meeting point to deliver the tributes and plans to set up an ambush there. But in the middle of his thought, he ends up tasting the food when it's too hot and burns his tongue with a start. The comedic moment is cut short when he hears the front door open and turns his head curiously. Mitsuru comes home, dragging her feet with exhaustion, and says she's going straight to bed, while Fuma promises to save dinner for her. Watching his daughter go to her room like that, the barista finds her behavior strange, as she is usually very energetic. He narrows his eyes suspiciously, feeling that something is very wrong. The next day, the protagonist arrives at the door of a huge training gym. Inside, a ring is filled with sweaty brutes exchanging punches during training. Wearing his usual apron, Fuma walks fearlessly right through the middle of the hall. The fighters immediately stop their training, staring at the intruder with great hostility. Tired of wasting time, the father maintains his cold posture and tells them all to come at him at once. The scene abruptly changes to a gigantic underground arena surrounded by a wild crowd. Inside the cage, a bald, muscular fighter advances, throwing heavy blows. The big guy lands a brutal uppercut right on his opponent's chin, snapping his head back. The audience goes absolutely wild, screaming for the fighter to finish the match without mercy. Consumed by adrenaline, the brute prepares his next attack, focusing all his fury. With a deafening impact, the fighter drives a punch into his opponent's stomach, sending the poor guy flying. The man lands heavily on the floor, knocked out, while the crowd cheers for the victory. The bald champion celebrates his victory sinisterly, but Fuma, watching from the edge, notices that the big guy's eyes look bizarre. Ignoring the tournament rules, the father leaps from above, invading the fighting arena. The big guy looks up, completely confused by the arrival of the unexpected intruder. Maintaining his coolness, the barista just smirks at the threat and pulls the hilt of his weapon. The fighter goes on alert as the protective cage is cut in the blink of an eye. Landing on the smooth floor, the intruder gets into a perfect fighting stance, holding his sword. Impatient with the audacity, the champion pushes off and leaps with all his might toward his adversary. The brute attempts a crushing overhead punch, but Fuma easily defends with his blade, warning that his opponent is being manipulated by the monk. The beast ignores the warning and unleashes a dizzying sequence of punches, making the air tremble around them. Taking advantage of a gap in the advance, the protagonist lands a heavy kick right in the giant's chest. But the blow has no effect, and the adversary continues to stare at his target, full of fury. Faced with such absurd resistance, the father slides back, dragging his feet on the floor to gain distance. The fighter gives no quarter and charges again, putting the weight of his body into the next blows. With great skill, the intruder blocks every charge, quickly crossing his sword against the enemy's fists. The fight heats up as the big guy tries a violent cross punch while Fuma dodges, preparing a counter-attack. Fuma ducks agilely, letting the devastating punch graze past his head. He raises his katana vertically, forcing the brute to halt his advance to avoid being cut by the blade. However, in an unpredictable move, the fighter grabs the barista's neck with crushing force. The big guy lifts the intruder off the ground with no effort, while he tries to break free from the chokehold. The lack of air begins to bother the protagonist, who grits his teeth, enduring the extreme pain. Far from the ring, the shadowy figure of the skeletal monk watches the massacre, hidden among the audience. Suffering in the grip, the father turns his gaze and spots the true enemy disguised in the crowd. The specter silently mocks him, confirming that it is in control of the entire trap. An overwhelming hatred takes hold of the intruder, who decides to stop playing with the puppet. With precision, Fuma grabs the muscular arm squeezing his throat. Using his own attacker as leverage, he delivers an acrobatic kick right to the giant's face. The violent impact breaks the brute's posture, sending him stumbling back as the protagonist frees himself in mid-air. The barista lands on the arena floor, sliding and already raising his weapon to continue the fight. Completely out of control, the fighter recovers quickly and charges, throwing another direct punch. At that moment, the father's eye gleams with a murderous fury as he prepares his sword to attack for real. It all starts with Fuma landing a brutal uppercut right in the giant fighter's face. With the devastating impact, the brute stumbles back screaming, complaining that his eyes were hit. High above in the stands, the skeletal monk watches everything, surrounded by a crowd of the faction's henchmen. The specter just lets out a mocking grunt at the defeat of its puppet in the ring. Without wasting time, the creature leaps back, disappearing into the darkness of the corridor. The protagonist charges at full speed with his katana in hand, demanding that the enemy wait. Chasing his target, he easily slashes through the decorative wall with his blade. The monk jumps over the wave-themed scenery while Fuma stays right behind him, giving no ground. Landing on the smooth floor, the father stops abruptly, realizing he has lost sight of the specter. Just then, the enemy's voice echoes through the area, saying that if he wants to save his daughter, he must go to the monk's quarters. The intruder narrows his eyes, paying close attention to the taunt. Alone in the empty scenery, he processes the information to decide his next move. The destination is revealed to be a bizarre dimension, with a giant red portal floating in a sea of blood. Right behind the structure, the Lord's true form manifests as a colossal abomination covered in tentacles and giant eyes. Facing the creature head-on, Fuma readies his katana, coldly announcing that he has finally found him. Fuma leaps at extreme speed toward the bizarre creature, shouting the monster's name. Delivering a devastating downward blow, the protagonist splits the red portal in two, along with the enemy's base. The structure's debris collapses into the sea of blood, raising a reddish wave. Far away, the school's doctor exudes pure malice, vowing that the target will not escape. The day remains bright and peaceful at the front of Rikuhara School. Inside the classroom, Mitsuru lets out a gigantic yawn, showing pure exhaustion. With no energy, the new girl slumps onto her own desk, just wanting to rest. The girl mutters softly, feeling a deep sense of unease taking over her body. Worried about the situation, Shinkai leans over the desk, asking if her friend is okay. The protagonist slowly turns her head, calling her classmate's name. The girl with glasses notices her friend's paleness, who tries to explain it away by saying she hasn't been sleeping well and is therefore always tired. Rubbing her face, the young woman complains that even her eyes are burning. Shinkai suggests she go to the nurse's office, but the new girl pouts, saying it's too much effort. She reveals she really dislikes the smell of disinfectant and confesses she's not a fan of the school nurse. Her friend is silent for a second, and then offers Mitsuru a tissue to wipe the sweat from her face. Shinkai raises her finger excitedly, remembering that eating something sweet helps to relax. Handing over the snack, the student elicits an expression of gratitude from the new girl. Trying to cheer her companion up even more, the friend suggests they take a walk around the school. Mitsuru agrees to the idea immediately with great enthusiasm. She gets up from her desk, already feeling a little better with the company. In the empty nurse's office, the doctor silently watches the activity through the window. With a quick gesture, the woman pulls at the collar of her blouse, revealing a dark tattoo near her chest. Suddenly, the drawing comes to life, and a real bat detaches from her skin. The animal takes flight, passing right through the open window as the professional follows it with her gaze. Flying high down the hallway, the creature emits sound waves to scan the environment on its owner's command. Reflecting on the situation, the doctor concludes that the magical barrier shows no apparent flaws. However, she finds it very suspicious that the energy of the girl named Shinkai is so perfectly stable. Returning to the blood dimension, Fuma faces the specter, standing before the portal's wreckage. The skeletal monk warns that stepping into that sanctuary is a great act of desecration. Showing its glowing purple eye, the creature scoffs, stating that it was incredibly foolish of the intruder to chase it there. Fuma slightly draws his blade, completely annoyed by this talk of a sanctuary. Pointing his weapon, he demands to know why they are kidnapping magical children, and what that altar is for. The monk just lets out a sinister laugh, ignoring the questions. Taking a step forward, the enemy warns that a common human doesn't need to understand divine plans. The creature strikes its staff on the ground, causing a storm of blood to rise around it. The magic molds the red liquid, creating several floating eyeballs as the specter declares that the intruder will serve as food. With a furious cry, the monk gives the attack order to its macabre creations. The blood eyes shoot toward the protagonist like high-speed missiles. Maintaining absolute calm, the father executes a swift movement with his katana. Fuma slices through the projectiles with extreme precision, causing the blood to explode in all directions. The specter gets a huge shock upon seeing its adversary already positioned right in front of it. The barista attempts a lethal vertical cut, but the enemy quickly retreats, narrowly escaping. Landing in the reddish sea, the monk summons several energy portals around its own body. New eyeball abominations begin to sprout in droves from these dimensional rifts. One of the creatures charges forward, flying aggressively toward the protagonist. The monsters fly in a zigzag pattern, surrounding the target from every possible angle. Concentrating magic in its hands, the skeletal monk creates a gigantic eyeball, ordering the offspring to feed and grow. The intruder repels the charge with a sword strike while the enemy continues to order the advance. The protagonist grits his teeth, focused on not letting any of those things get close. He parries another brutal attack, sending sparks flying on impact. Sliding across the blood-soaked ground, Fuma continues to defend himself from the moving shower of projectiles. The father plants his feet on the ground, regaining stability for his next move. Assessing the situation, he realizes the attacks have gotten stronger, and his blade won't last much longer at this rate. The specter joins its hands, exuding pure malice, wanting to see how the human will deal with the next spell. Fuma looks up, his eyes widening at the imminent surprise. A gigantic swarm of eyes dives from the sky like a true avalanche. The entire area is bombarded by reddish explosions, making the intruder click his tongue in frustration. Running desperately across the platform, the protagonist tries to dodge the pillars of energy that are destroying everything. The sanctuary structure completely collapses while Fuma leaps, trying to escape the crossfire. Hiding behind his own blade, the barista sounds cold, concluding that he urgently needs to find a way to deal with long-range attacks. Sensing the imminent attack, Fuma leaps with his katana and concludes there's only one way to fight back. With a firm landing in the sea of blood, he prepares himself before the gigantic red portal. In a swift motion, the protagonist attacks the barrier of reddish crystals with his blade. Taking advantage of the debris in the air, the father understands he needs to use these pieces as his own ammunition. With that, he bats the fragments with all his strength, using his sword like a baseball bat. The sharp pieces shoot through the air at high speed, tearing through everything in their path. With no chance to defend, the skeletal monk is hit head-on by the shower of shrapnel. The specter is completely shocked by the turnaround as the intruder touches the ground again. Trying to retaliate at all costs, the enemy raises its magic staff to begin a new spell, but Fuma slides nimbly beneath it and delivers an extremely fast slash. The movement flows smoothly, decapitating the creature in the blink of an eye. The scene changes drastically to a super appetizing looking pastry full of fruit. Savoring the sweet with great joy, Mitsuru's cheeks are full as she feels it's the best snack she's ever had. Sitting in the school courtyard next to her friend, Shinkai excitedly asks if the new girl is enjoying the cake. The girl with glasses asks if she's feeling better, which the protagonist confirms, praising the food's flavor. Taking another bite, Mitsuru confesses that just minutes ago she was feeling very nauseous, but now she feels great. Shinkai clasps her hands, relieved to hear that, and encourages her companion to eat as much as she wants. Looking at the sky, the new girl comments that she wishes her father would also make sweets for her from time to time. She grumbles that the man is a bit out of touch with trends, although he tries to please her all the time. At that, the protagonist shows a super weird animal-shaped charm, complaining about how tacky it is. Intrigued by the bizarre object, the girl with glasses leans in for a closer look. Mitsuru explains that her father forced her to carry it at school, right after that explosion incident. Her friend stares at the talisman in silence, paying close attention to every word of the story. Calmly changing the subject, Shinkai says she needed to tell her something important. With a sad look, she reveals that she used to change schools a lot and was always bullied without anyone ever helping her. However, her friend thanks her because the new girl protected her on the very first day of school, and is even sharing her snack now. With a gigantic smile, Shinkai states that she is extremely grateful to have found her most trustworthy friend. Suddenly, the girl's expression contorts sinisterly as she assures her that the one who is really excited about all this trust is her, revealing her true monstrous form with a neck that stretches horrifically through the air. Seized by absolute terror, the protagonist screams, falling backward and dropping the sweet on the ground. The scaly creature stares at the victim with its demonic eyes, asking if she still considers it her best friend like this. Exuding pure malice, the monster confesses that it felt disgusted seeing the new girl act so pure and innocent. With its gigantic mouth wide open, the abomination lunges violently as the girl screams in desperation. At that exact moment, the tacky charm in the protagonist's pocket reacts, casting a protective beam of light. A magical explosion throws the monstrous creature backward with a brutal impact. Immediately after, the school nurse appears, ordering the beast not to take another step. Surrounded by dark bats, the professional threatens to rip the monster's head off if it disobeys the order. Regaining its balance, the fake friend grumbles, surprised to find someone from an assassin organization right there. The doctor seriously questions how the intruder managed to get past the sound barrier protecting the school. Sarcastically, the abomination explains that using a fake human skin allows it to alter its own energy to invade any place without being noticed. The shock hits the doctor instantly as she deduces that the protagonist's real friend is already gone. Hearing the cruel revelation, Mitsuru freezes, completely traumatized by Shinkai's fate. The professional extends her hand, calling the student by her last name to come to her quickly. Crying desperately, the young woman runs at full speed toward the teacher while the bizarre neck pursues her. She cries, faithfully believing she will be safe from this nightmare as soon as she reaches the woman. Right on her heels, the scaly specter ironically asks if its prey really thinks she has any chance of escaping. Before she can reach the teacher, Mitsuru's body freezes, illuminated by a purple magic, as her fake friend declares that she won't let her get away.